Welcome to Collective Couch Conversations, a candid series on leadership and organizational development. I'm Rebecca Ume-Crook, and I'm so pleased to be here with Diana Kwamboka. And today we're going to get into the art of gathering.
Yes, so gathering is very important to us, and one of the questions I kept asking myself is, but why should we care about gathering? Why is it important? And when I was reflecting on that particular question, I realized that we normally have our fellows come through 6 months program. So one of the key things was, after that, what happens next? How can we make sure that our fellows still remember Metis? What is it that we can continuously do to unite us, to create a sense of belonging? And one of the key things we remembered was, we could actually create a lot of events, a lot of gatherings. We bring them together so they can collectively learn, they can collectively see what can I collaborate with each other and be able to do many other meaningful things. So based on that reflection, Rebecca, one of the things I'd like to learn from you today is, what are some of the effective ways to ensure that when I'm bringing together these fellows or these alum, or when I'm having these gatherings, what are some of the effective ways I can do to ensure that these gatherings are actually meaningful and very impactful? Not just for Metis, but also for the fellows. Yeah,
I really appreciate that, Diana. And I think before I answer your question, I just want to highlight that sense of belonging is really important, I think, for our leaders. And I've just seen that belonging feels like the bedrock of doing our most brave work. And our leaders are innovators who are disrupting the status quo. And for them to be able to do that, to innovate, to push the boundaries, having a safe community of people to whom they belong is essential. And I've seen that in my own life. So I appreciate your why. I also think gathering even, beyond Metis is really important. I would hope for our community, the way that we gather, I think, is the way that we live. And so beyond just our gatherings as a Metis community, I think there's some principles that I'm really happy to share today that can enable us to meaningfully gather with people we care about in our homes, in our churches, in our professional as well as personal lives. For me, gathering and community feels like the antidote to despair.
Yeah.
And it feels like if we want to get on to creating brave new worlds, then we're going to need sustenance, and community feels like a really important source of that sustenance. And gathering can be part of a way of enriching that environment. So on to your question about how we go about doing that.
Please.
So I had to think about this, and I came up with 5 I's, which can be a framework for gathering, and you can take them, lose them, adapt them, play around with them, see how they serve you, Diana. But they're 5 I's, and they go like this. There's introspect, identify, imagine, invite, and ignite. And then we start again with the introspection. So it's this cycle, and we'll link a PowerPoint with all of this for the folks who are watching this to see, but I can briefly walk us through them. The first step when you're planning a gathering, I think, should be to introspect. And to sit with the question, why do I want to gather people? What am I hoping to achieve? What are my needs? What are my community's needs? You talked about leading meaningful gatherings, and I think this first starts with a bit of stillness and a bit of strategy and a bit of thinking, what are our needs? So Diana, I actually had a think about this, and I came up with a framework for gathering that's called the 5 I's. You can take it, you can leave it.
We are taking them.
You can adapt it and even make it better.
Yeah, definitely.
Here it goes. I'm going to look at them so I don't mess it up for you. Okay. So the first I is introspect. Then we identify. Then we imagine. Then we invite. Then we ignite. So I can walk us through them now. The first step, I think, and you talked about how do we lead meaningful gatherings. I think that it begins with introspection, of sitting with oneself and going, what are my needs and my desires? What do I need? What does my community need? What do I want in the world? And then after spending some time in introspection, you can begin to identify the purpose of your gathering. And during this stage, you ask, why are we gathering? And you clarify your gathering's purpose. Because if you don't have a clear purpose in the beginning, any activity can get you there. So introspect, identify, then you imagine. In this stage, you design new possibilities. You can say, how will we be together? And this is a fun stage. You can think of different activities, different experiences, different pop-up rules. During this stage, you get to create an alternate world, really. Like events and gatherings can be whatever you want them to be, as long as you communicate in advance. You can create whole new alternate universes. So an imagine stage is when all that magic happens. And then you invite. So you get to intentionally welcome others. I believe gatherings begin at the moment people find out about them. And so during the invite stage, you go, how will I prepare my guests? So you think about, how will they learn about the event? What will the invite look like? Can you start conveying the purpose and the intention and set the expectations right from the onset of that invitation? Will it be a WhatsApp group where people, in our fellowship we have people share photos of themselves and share, a fun fact about we give them prompts, right? You might be inviting people to a board meeting and have them bring an artifact about a time when they were young and they were learning to help get them plugged in. We've had gatherings at Metis where we wear what we want people to wear at our funerals as a way to get to know each other. So, that all goes in the invitation because it helps people understand what to expect so they can bring their best selves to your gathering. And then finally, you ignite. So in this stage, you boldly commune with others and you say, what's possible when I step into my leadership? And this stage is really beautiful because you get to enjoy whatever gathering it is. But I would encourage you, Diana, to have generous authority and to not abdicate that authority in service of being chill or cool. Like Priya Parker in her wonderful book, The Art of Gathering, talks about not being a chill host. Like sometimes when we convene others, it's up to us to ensure that it's a safe space for people, which might mean upholding those norms and creating space for people to show up fully. So that's the ignite. And then finally at the end, I also encourage you to go back to that first I, which is introspect. And that's when we tune back into our feelings and we reflect on how things went. Did it meet your needs? Did it meet your community's needs? Are there things that you would want to do differently in the future? So I have found, like, at the gatherings I'm most proud of hosting together with the Metis team or in my own personal life, these 5 I's of introspection, of identification, of imagining, and then inviting, and then igniting, and then introspecting again. Like these steps I actually follow, a bit intuitively no matter what. And I think it really helps be intentional, which ups your chances of having a gathering that is purposeful and meaningful, as you asked about.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing that insightful information, especially on the 5 I's. It's definitely something that I've learned, and it's something that I'm promising you that I'll carry forward beyond this. And I'm also hoping everyone who's also watching, they can borrow some lessons from that. And I like what you've mentioned around introspecting, especially after an event, because one of our key values is listen and learn. After an event, you look at it and you're retrospecting and you're like, okay, what went well, what didn't go well? So based on that, how would success look like like after an event, when you're just sitting down and reflecting, how would you say this was a successful event? What are some of the checks and balances you would say, not just for you personally, but even at Metis as an organization?
As an organization, I mean, I think it goes, I love our process of doing Webbies, so the what went well, even better if. I think it goes back to purpose, so that first introspection. If we met our purpose, then it's a successful event. And I think when you're in that first planning stage is identifying what you might want people to feel, what you want people to do or to say as a result of your gathering, getting clear about what you want that to look and feel like can then also be your barometer for success. So and of course we balance that with the beautiful emergent possibilities that we can't even plan for. And we balance both the magic of emergence with the planned part that's going, how do I want people to feel and what do I want them to do and how might I want them to talk about this afterwards. So I don't think there's a script for what makes a successful event. I think that success really can be determined by you or whoever the team of people is planning a gathering. Again, whether that's a birthday party or a bridal shower or a funeral or anything. I think so often we go into events with like scripts of like, this is how it's supposed to be. And it's like, there's meant to be this activity and then this activity and this activity. And sometimes I just want to be like, why? Like I watch so many people go through wedding ceremonies or through these rites of passage that some of the activities, sure, they're serving some people and maybe they're serving the gatherers, but many are not. They're just doing it because they think that they're supposed to. And that's what I just really would love for us to avoid and to bypass, that really to see ourselves as like architects of belonging and architects of our own community, and we have agency in that. And so there might be beautiful aspects of gatherings that serve communal purposes, that preserve culture and tradition, and we might choose to keep those elements because they matter to us. But I think that introspection phase is really key because we get to think, what do I need? And so maybe in a baby shower, maybe your core need is not just to get gifts to offset the enormous cost of having a child, but maybe your core need is, I'm actually nervous about how this is going to change my relationship with my partner. Maybe I need in a baby shower other partners to be there to share their wisdom with us about how we move forward into this new stage of our relationship. Or to, I think we really get to think about what is the purpose of this. So I can give another example too. We just had this big event called Passing the Baton.
Yeah, definitely. Ooh.
And I've never been to an event like that, to be honest. Have you?
No, that was the first one actually.
Yeah. So I'll give you another example. We just had this big event called Passing the Baton.
Oh yeah, that was a good event by the way.
Yeah? Actually, I'm curious, what do you think made it good?
Number one, there was a lot of intentionality about the different people that we were inviting, because we had from cohort 1, can you imagine, all the way to cohort 7 people. So there was a lot of intentionality about we actually wanted to come to that event. From the people who haven't been in the fellowship, but then also to people who have been family to Metis, people who have been our friends. We did actually invite everyone. And then not only that, but even as Metis staff, we had the opportunity to invite our own people to come and witness this particular event. So I felt like the fact that we were very intentional about inviting different people for them to be part of this monumental event, I think that was one of the things that made it very successful, just having the right people in the room. Yeah, to share with us that particular event.
Yeah, to share with us a moment. And a moment that might be tough. That is tough. That is tender, and we need our people to walk us through.
Exactly.
Right? So that was, when I think about that particular event and our leadership team, as we went through planning that, we thought, we had to introspect. We had to go, what is our need in this moment? And so the need for us, we had to invent this ritual. Okay, we had to invent something because there was no script for this, and that's actually probably a good thing because there's freedom there. But we thought about what are our needs as a community right now as we go through this transition. And transitions, even if they're really good, are hard because they're change, and we're human, so it's hard. So it's like, okay, our need is to feel witnessed. Our need is to feel supported. Yeah. Our need is to ensure that all of these relationships we've built over the last 6 years don't just go with one person when they exit an organization, but they stay with the community so that there is continuity of care and support. That was a need. And then we had a need to celebrate, So we thought about that. And then, so that was the introspection stage. Yeah. And then when we had to identify our purpose, we said, okay, we're very clear in our documents. Our purpose is to celebrate this transition, to reflect on our road here. So we have to reflect on where we've been, and then we want to build shared understanding and commitment towards where we're going. Yeah. And so that was our clear purpose. And having clear, disputable purpose. Your purpose might not be for everyone. They can then opt in or out of whether they want to come to such an event. But that was our clear purpose. So okay, we introspected, we identified our purpose. Now it was to invite people, and I'm so glad that you felt like it was very neat to see a diverse range of folks there. For us, it felt important to have a range of fellows as well as supporters who were with Metis from the very beginning, as well as people we might want to pull along our journey going forward. So this means potential funders, potential partners, potential new fellows, potential mentors. So we wanted to use this as an opportunity to again, aligned with our purpose, to galvanize the collective towards a shared vision moving forward. And so with that invitation, it wasn't like, oh, come celebrate an ED handover. It was like, come be a part of celebrating where we've been and building momentum towards where we're going. So that was the communication in the invite. It was a very celebratory message, because I think also in our cultural context, it's often seen as disaster when a founder leaves, like something must be really wrong. And so our messaging around the around the event had to start at the moment that people get this invite. And then there are particular things you can do. The invite itself, are people getting a physical invite? Are they getting party favors when they get it? Is it, our invite was digital. It was also very colorful and celebrity, so you can start sending the message, the vibe, from the very moment people find out about it. So that's the invite. Then after, so we did introspect, then we did the imagine. We haven't done imagine. We haven't done imagine yet. That is the next one. That's actually the next one, exactly. Okay, so we imagine, we identify, we invite, and then we imagine. Okay, because this has never happened before, we did want to, in the history of Metis, we wanted to pull examples maybe from other people's transitions. So in this case, I was actually talking to my brother, who has gone through a CEO transition in his own organization, and he talked about events and the symbolism of it and how he felt as an employee at the organization. So we kind of gathered tidbits from other people's celebrations, and then we wove them together in a way that is aligned to the purpose. You cannot just cut and paste and expect it to go well. Aligned with our purpose, aligned with our internal needs as a community, and we then created activities. So we imagined, having confetti and a baton, but then we didn't want to just have a baton from one person to another. We wanted everybody in the room to have the sense of, oh my God, our time is now. I have a piece of the baton. And so we made pins for these batons. We created opportunities for board members to speak. We created opportunities for fellows to reflect. We created an opportunity for me to share a little bit about where we've been. And then for the new executive director to share about where we are going. So that's the imagine part. That for me is a really fun part. You get to be creative. That's where you can go and do research both online or asking other people. You don't have to design in a silo. You might even want to ask participants. Like I asked our team, what do you want to feel? You know, I asked our team early on, like, what do you want to feel by the end of October? And they told us they want to feel, one of the things was confident. And so it was like, okay, how do we create a sense of confidence, you know, through this by gathering folks? So consulting people you are actually gathering, making it participatory can be a part of this imagination phase. And then after we imagine, of course, then we ignite. We make it happen. We prepared well so that we could be fully present on the day of and show up and really just relish the event, which I think is a really beautiful thing. And, you know, that's where you're just really inviting people into, you know, we talk about what are the small things we could do as staff to create the vibe that we want. You know, we all wore the same shirts. We were very, you know, like you were dressed very colorfully. You're very Metis on brand, right, with African print. Like we talked about, like what will we wear?
Even how we actually welcoming the people to the event. That was also one of the way. You have to be very warm because you can't be there and you're just, you know, not in the mood, because that also sets the pace and sets the mood. So I really like the way you were warming up to people, hugging them, making sure that they're feeling so warm and so welcomed in the venue as well.
Yeah.
So I felt that was also one of the things that we did very well to make sure that people just felt welcomed.
I totally agree. And even the pitching up to set up, so we, you know, we created, right, a whole Metis journey through photos, etc. That's also part of the ignite phase where you're now setting the mood, both the physical space and then the emotional space by how we show up as hosts.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really liked that point that you made.
Yeah. So actually, thank you for saying that, because one of the things that I was also wondering is, it's one thing to talk to people about a particular event, inviting them and sharing what it is that you want. But then once people are there, how do you make sure that these people leave that place remembering, oh, this was the event? They keep remembering. It's something that is very memorable to them. So how are some of the ways in which, number one, you can also engage them? Once they're there, they feel like they were part of the event. They just don't leave and it's like, oh, that was just another event that I just attended. Yeah, so I'm very curious to learn from you. What are some of the ways I can make sure my people feel very engaged and keep remembering this particular event?
I would wonder about, like, what's the point of remembering an event? Or is it something that you want them to kind of do or participate in? Or is it an internal shift you want for them? And again, I think that's different to every event. For us in this one, to just use this most recent event of Passing the Baton as an example, we wanted people to continue to engage. So, and show up for us. And so then in the design, what we did was then create a participatory element where we had people turn and talk and share their favorite memories of Metis. Yeah. So they got to share in that. And then we asked them, after sharing our strategic direction, we asked them, what are you most excited about going forward? And then we said, what feedback do you have for us? What should what should we consider? What could we improve on? And then we asked finally, what's your commitment? And we had them write it down. And we had some people stand up and share their commitment so that other people could bear witness and also be inspired by their peers' commitments. So I think it goes back, Diana, to what do you want people to do or say or feel, and making it easy for that. The other thing we did is we had kind of a call to action in that we want people to then come to Reimagine Ed. We want them to apply to the fellowship. We were inviting them to a workshop on impact measurement. And so we made it easy for people to sign up by having posters as well as sign-up links and QR codes. So we made it very easy for during the festive food and tea time and during networking time for people also to go, okay, this has been really meaningful for me today. Here's my next step in engaging in the future. I'm going to get my ticket now for Reimagine It, or I'm going to make a commitment to come to this impact training. And then we also collected all of their feedback forms, and we have their commitment. So there's, something really powerful about stating it. So I hope that answered your question.
100%. It does answer my question, because one of the things that you've just told me is, what do I want my people to feel once they live this? What do I want them to think? What do I want them to do? So even when you're designing any event that you have, even when you're thinking about it, those are things that now will go into your event to make sure that when these people come, they actually feel very engaged, because after they leave, what do I want them to feel? What do I want them to do?
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Rebecca. And I really like the fact that you're very audience-centered. Everything that we do, especially around gathering, we're always thinking about the audience. Who's the audience? How do we make sure this is what they do, this is what they feel? And now, looking back and also retrospecting around your journey so far, what are some of the key events that you'd say are the key highlights so far? I know you've been very passionate about the Pass the Baton event. It was very recent, but I'm curious, throughout the journey, are there some that are a very key highlight?
Yeah.
And maybe what could be the reasons why they're key highlights?
Absolutely. I mean, one of my key highlights, and it doesn't, again, events don't, and gathering, I mean, how we gather is how we live.
Yeah.
And even this right now is a gathering. So I think about how we're doing this. We're not like at a fancy studio recording this, like we're on a couch, we're just together. Like we wanted to have candid conversations. So we had to think about like, okay, the purpose of these is to document some of our learning so that internally we keep it as a team, but also we can share it externally. And we want it to be candid. We want it to be comfortable. And so when we identify that purpose, then, we went through the same thing. This itself, where two or more people are together, we're gathered. So I think they don't have to be these big, massive events. It doesn't have to be Reimagine It, although I'll talk about that just now. But I would encourage us all to think again, and beyond just your professional life, your personal life, how you gather really matters. It can determine the quality of your life. So I would call this a gathering day. And I would also say, our weekly meetings are gatherings. And so what's the thinking through? What's the need? Can I clarify the purpose? What are the activities? Setting the agenda that aligns to that purpose. How am I inviting people into it? Whether we're sending the agenda in advance also helps people come prepared. How are we starting the meeting? How are we igniting it? And then even reflecting. Like sometimes we've had meetings at Metis that don't go well, that don't feel like a great use of time. And so sometimes then we introspect afterwards, go, wait a minute, okay, that meeting wasn't the best. And we just acknowledge that, right? So I think what's so cool about this framework, I personally think, is that you can go through the 5 I's even when it's just for a simple weekly meeting, or it's a planning meeting, or it's your programs meeting, or it's a board meeting. One of the rituals like we have as a team that I really value is on Tuesdays, right? We have our weekly staff meeting. We've identified the purpose to be able to connect with each other and celebrate each other's progress, as well as share updates on the work that we're doing so that we're aware of key happenings. And then we also create time to problem solve anything that collectively involves us all. And so that's the purpose. Then we make an agenda for that, and it's communicated in advance. And then, of course, we end the meeting every single time with shout outs. Why? Because that activity reinforces the purpose of the meeting, which is also to celebrate, our progress and teammates' progress. And so we'll keep the structure, and you'll keep the structure as long as it serves you.
Yeah.
And if the needs of the team change, guess what? The purpose and the agenda of those meetings and the activities that you do should also change.
Yeah.
I think that like gathering should evolve. I don't think that we should keep the same old forever. I think we really need to be tapping into what are desires and needs at a time. So I think those are big highlights, but I think these, it just to me like show that they're really important, because how we gather over time then creates a culture.
Yeah.
And that culture really drives everything we do at Metis. I think culture even precedes, strategy. Without a strong culture, we can't do this. And I think gatherings can be the rituals that enable a really strong, joyful, functional culture. And that when we go astray, gatherings can actually help us come back to that, right?
Keeps us rooted.
It keeps us rooted, or it can redirect. Like, for example, when we had a breakdown in communication with the programs team, we designed a special gathering to bring us back together. To share a big one, right? We have Reimagine Ed.
Yeah, that is coming up.
It's coming up in November. It's our annual learning summit, and again, it goes through those 5 I's again, thinking about what is our purpose, and then we design activities. We don't just go around looking at Pinterest or looking at other people's conferences and cutting and pasting into our own. It's great to have inspiration. I want us to go out in the world and be moved by other conferences and summits and be awed by them and to get little nuggets that we can incorporate in our own. But I wouldn't want that to happen unless they're aligned to a clear purpose and goal. So gatherings, big or small, I think can really infuse a lot of vitality into one's life and into our collective lives. And I think that, again, you asked for highlights. I said a big one, Reimagine Ed, which is one of my favorite things that happen every single year. But I would say, Diana, actually, it's almost, I would actually say that the quality of our mundane gatherings determine more of our success and more of our impact than our big fancy gatherings.
So Rebecca, I've really liked the insights that you've put across, and you've also mentioned about our upcoming event, which is Reimagine Ed, and you're targeting very many different people. So as an organization probably that is starting up, how do I make sure that in as much as I have this gathering that I'm planning, I do have the right people in the room? How do I go about talking to them, tweaking my language to different people to make sure that I actually have the right people in the room during my different gathering sessions?
Good question. So I think after you've identified the people that you would want, I'm laughing thinking because we've invited, I had this dream of having Eliud Kipchoge come, and I don't know how to get a hold of him. This is, but again, community. So you just have to, once we identified him as a keynote speaker, I put it out into our community of Metis fellows, and sure enough, one of our cohort 5 fellows was like, I know a guy who knows a guy, we can get it. Give me 2 days. Within 1 hour, she came back to me with his phone number. And I'm like, oh my goodness, wow. I've got one shot. I'm not just going to call him. I have to make an impression.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you just have to be creative and also just lean into who you are as a human. So be authentic to yourself, number 1, and always. And then number 2, think about what will resonate with your recipient. So in this case, I was like, what is Kipchoge like? What is he like? What is he like? And I'm like, the man likes to run. So what am I going to do? I'm going to run during my invitation. So I have his WhatsApp number, and I kid you not, Diana, I'm out there with my phone, okay? I'm like this. And I am running on my street, and there was a Nike Run Club app that had his voice in it. And so I just did that one, so I had Kipchoge's voice in my ear, and then I'm recording myself, and I'm like, hi, Eliud, my name's Rebecca. And I was like, no, that didn't sound right. I'm running back and forth. Hi, Eliud, I'm Rebecca. I'm just did a run listening to your voice, and I recently heard about the launch of your education initiative. Really excited that you've started a foundation that prioritizes literacy and libraries, and I really wanted to invite you into a community gathering called Reimagine Ed, where we are supporting local leaders who are creating more equitable education opportunities for learners across Kenya. Would love to talk to you more about it. Please give me a call when you get a chance. Okay. But it took me, okay, and even that I would redo because I was like, no. So it was just so funny. I'm just sitting there running back and forth, panting. I think there was an Ascari watching me going like, that woman is out of her mind. But sometimes you gotta just do whatever means necessary. And that was authentic to me, and I thought it was something that would resonate with him. And then, sure enough, guess who sent me a text back?
Ooh, nice.
Kipchoge going, hi, tell me your name again. Like, I want to know more. And then we talked on the phone, and then we talked on the phone, and it ended up he wasn't able to come to our event, but he recorded a video, keynote speech for us, and sent it to Metis. So now, it's, again, I guess like all I can say, Diana, is there's no one size fits all. For any gathering, for any event, I think there's just that ability to go, what is my personal need? What's true to me? And then for the people I'm communicating to, what will resonate with them? What are their needs? What will get them motivated? And so talking about something he cares about, running, and then the library initiative that he had started through his personal foundation was a way that then, got him to respond. So I think when it comes to, if you're in a position where there are certain people or organizations you want in a room, but you're not sure how to get them, I think there are a couple clues from this one little case study example.
100%, yeah.
One is community. Reach out to your community. You don't have to cold call by yourself. You can get connections, you can get support, you can ask for introductions on WhatsApp or on email or on LinkedIn, whatever it may be. You might want to find a messenger. If it didn't feel appropriate for me to reach out to Kipchoge, I could have, asked for someone else to invite him on my behalf, right? If that was more effective. And sometimes you could ask advice about, if there's an effective messenger there. I think another example is, again, that empathy, that what will resonate with them. So you talked about how do I tailor my message, and whether when you're inviting a government official versus you're inviting your mom versus you're inviting a prospective fellow versus a prospective mentor, those are different messages people, because you want them to come for different reasons. And so you have to think about what are the needs and desires of my participants, and speak to those desires, honor them, see them, have them reflected in that invite. I think has been helpful to Metis over the years. And the last thing is, if you really want someone, just go for it. Be creative. Like I was like, well, I'm not afraid to look like an idiot. If you really want it, just go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca. I think this has been a very resourceful session for me because I've learned so much about gathering, and definitely the way I'm going to be looking at it is going to be from a completely different lens. I've learned from your journey throughout when you started Metis up to where we are at the moment, from how you think through an event to how you actually execute it. And then it just doesn't end when you execute an event, but then what happens after? Do you have time just to reflect, to see what are some of the key learnings that I can do it differently next time? So I really liked how you've taken us through the journey throughout, and thank you so much for the session. It was very insightful, and I'm hoping everyone who's going to watch is also going to learn something and pick away something from the session. Yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Diana.